Welcome everyone. We are waiting for the guests to arrive. In the meantime, take a seat because we will start in a couple of minutes. All right, in the meantime that all the guests arrive, welcome to everyone. I will start with a short introduction to today's space because this is really a special space because we will be talking about ideas. And I think that ideas are one of the things that is the most beautiful because ideas are really what allow us to dream. And I think that this ecosystem is full of brilliant ideas. And one of the most interesting aspects is that an idea doesn't require technicality. Everyone can bring an idea to life. And today we'll be speaking exactly about this because Cosmos was just an idea. The internet of blockchain was just an idea. But then IBC arrived, and IBC was that initial concept that technical people brought to life. So you start from an idea that maybe it's not possible, but then you have support, you build a team, and we have founders today, amazing founders, that actually brought that reality, took that idea, and today they have amazing products. So what you need to do to participate, because now it's your time to actually join this ecosystem, and this IBC Ideathon is open to everyone. All you need to do is basically sign up, and you can participate to win $30,000 in prize, which will actually be in Atom. And also, you can participate to different tracks like Solana, DeFi apps, chain abstraction, intent and incentives, and the wild card. What is the wild card? Well, it is wild. So you just need to go check it out at ideahackers.ibcprotocol.dev. So with this short presentation that kept me out of breath, I will start to introduce the guest. So welcome Aaron from Osmosis. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks for that intro, Rob. Yeah, I'm been with Osmosis for 3-ish years. Started off with the DAOs on the OSL, the support lab, and then the Osmosis Ministry of Marketing. Then eventually migrated to join the foundation team. I basically lead a lot of the growth and strategy efforts. This pertains to like partnerships, relations, building out the ecosystem, even things like going to events, all the BD. This would be what I focus on. Yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome, it's amazing to have you. Also welcome Gregor Suri from Akash. Feel free to do a short introduction.
Hi, thanks so much, Rob. My name is Greg. I'm the CEO for Overclock Labs and one of the founders of Akash. I've been with Akash since the beginning. Um, and like, big users of Cosmos for a very long time. In fact, I believe Akash is one of the first Cosmos chains. I'm currently in Utah for permissionless. So if you're around, come say hi at the Akash booth.
We also have Brianna from the Solana Foundation. Please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I work at the Solana Foundation for Developer Relations. And I previously worked in the Cosmos ecosystem as a Rust smart contract engineer. So kind of have some experience on both sides of this. So yeah.
We are also waiting for Yelena from Noble to arrive. And in the meantime, I want to remember the audience that if they want to participate to the IBC and the Ideathon and learn more, you just really need to click on the IBC protocol on my side, and you can find the link to start to discover it. Of course, please don't do it now because I still want you here because we have a lot of insight to share today, and it will be quite exciting because some of the questions are very, very interesting. And especially if you really want to build your idea and bring it to life, you really need the insight of people that made it possible. And today we definitely have it. So stay with us. In the meantime that Yelena arrives, I want to explain the structure of the space, which will be a quick discussion about ABC. Then we will dive on the section where we highlight what these projects are building. And lately, that's where you will get the real insight because We will talk about the experience of the contributors and how they brought their idea to life, if they have any advice. So stay with us until the end. So I will start with Aaron, since it was the first to be introduced. And I want to ask you a big quick question, which is why osmosis is so awesome? Which is a very easy question, but how osmosis became an early adopter of IBC? Because many of us know the story, but maybe some of the audience want to know what is the origin story of osmosis and how basically became the first project to bring IBC to the market.
Yeah. Well, so your first question is like, why is Osmosis so awesome? I think largely we have a Giga Chad team on the foundation side, and also the community and ecosystem. They also are huge contributors. So if you go ask people to like give a testimonial on osmosis, they're going to say like, how the hell do they have this giant support team that is around 24/7? So if you go right now and you want to try it out, you can literally test out the support and they should be responding to you within a minute. And this has existed for essentially the last 3 years. um, so people love that the osmosis community takes care of the community, is always there, responsive, and also triages all issues for anyone that's having struggles onboarding to osmosis. But of course, on top of that, the dex, I would dare say, has the best DeFi or DEX experience in the entire industry. Now, this hasn't always been the case. This has been a long journey. But the product side has pretty much hit its like end game over the last 6 months. If you go test it out right now, all the old bugs, bugs are everywhere, of course, but like all the like tedious little issues that pop up, like something's taking too long to load, or a transaction has gone through but it hasn't displayed properly, these are all gone. Given that block times are like close to a second nowadays, it's also pretty seamless. And how many users are actually, let's say, how many retail users are actually going to notice the difference between like a 1 or 2 second block time to like a sub-second block time? They're probably not going to care too much. They just want it to be snappy and like accurate. They don't want these little front end bugs to be persisting. So these things have all gone away. But then back to the other question of how was osmosis this the first to like really bring IBC to market? Well, the now osmosis wasn't the first to implement IBC, of course. Was that Iris or Akash? Or wait, was Akash the first
Well,
IBC
well, it
transfer and
was
Iris?
Cosmos Hub and IrisNet, but then the first transfer was actually Akash and Cosmos Hub.
Yeah, that's right. But Osmosis was the first to actually bring the put together the need for actually exchanging assets and baking in IBC with that. So the first DEX to actually bring it to the market. So right now, Osmosis has a lot of the assets that don't have a native home. Like Akash doesn't have its own native DEX that's widely used, and Osmosis is one of its primary trading venues for the AKT token. And same thing with like Celestia. And now a lot of assets that are in other ecosystems, but users in the Cosmos don't want to go and explore. Osmosis also has those available, such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, Polkadot. They're all available on Osmosis. So Osmosis is able to provide this for everyone in the Cosmos ecosystem pretty easily.
Yeah, I think it's pretty visible, the evolution as interchain DEX that literally allow user to basically trade almost everything. So great work there. Now we'll go to Akash because Greg, you literally have the experience of seeing the first MBC transfer, which was Akash Atom, and basically how that happened, like how you were so early on IBC, but especially what does it mean for Akash network to be part of an interconnected ecosystem?
So you want the real story? How we became
I want the
IBC?
most interesting one.
We want the real
Well,
story.
the real story is, so we started we started using Tendermint to build our layer one in 2018, 2019 timeframe. Believe we are one of the first projects to do so. and this is before Cosmos SDK existed. So that means we had to go build out all the modules ourselves. Um, and so the account module existed. I can't remember, but quite a lot. The user module did not exist. Staking did not exist. None of the modules we take for granted existed. So we went out and built an entire module stack while Cosmos team was working on building their own stack of modules. So there was double work. And our modules weren't as stable because, while we are building modules, we also had to build a cloud. So there was quite a lot of work we did. And we launched a bunch of test nets in 2019, 2018 timeframe, and test nets did not go well. I mean, there was a lot of stability issues. There was also this whole, like, I don't know if you remember the fight between ABCI, and gRPC. Thanks to Jaquan. So there's a lot of stuff that was like, I can't remember if it was like ABCI moving to gRPC and gRPC moving back to ABCI, and there was just, I think it ended up being a mixed patch of bunch of strategies. So it was very annoying. It was so annoying that the choices I had was either go fix our code or or move to Cosmos SDK. So the choice was clear. Instead of fixing your code, we deleted about 70,000 lines of code on Akash repo. There's this massive pull request from Adam and implemented Cosmos SDK, which was much nicer, by the way. So the real reason why we got an IBC was because Tendermint was super unstable and our modules weren't that great.
Well, that's awesome, and literally anytime you are in the show, you bring all these stories, which is absolutely amazing. In the meantime, we have also Yelena just joined from Noble, and I'm super
But
excited
but
because, sorry.
but to add a little bit of context, right?
Okay,
This
sure.
is in 2019. Oh, it's 2020, I think Cosmos launched. And Akash, Iris, and I believe Cosmos Hub were the only chains that were on Cosmos IBC. If you look at the IBC map, there were like literally 3 dots on that IBC map, uh, the map of zones. And we had no deck support being Cosmos. It was kind of isolated, right? Because Cosmos Hub did not have decks. And Osmosis, when it launched, I was so excited because it's the first time we had a DEX. While Ethereum has had Uniswap and a whole lot of like DEXs, Pancake Swap or whatever, Pineapple Swap or whatever, there was no DEX for Osmosis, and the liquidity was very thin back then. Um, this is in 2020, yeah, 2020 when Akash launched, Osmosis launched. So um, and I was one of the first LPs, like if I remember, on Osmosis. My APR was 3,000% on the first week.
Good
So a lot of
times.
fun. Yeah.
These
So
were good times, yeah.
IBC was extremely beneficial, um, because Osmosis was a primary way of people to get to get AKT tokens, and then we had all the centralized exchange listings that came way later. So I think Osmosis still is the primary way, a primary like Dex for Akash. Yeah, so IBC brought a lot of those benefits that didn't exist for Akash.
And that's really awesome. Like, I would love to go back to that time when Moses was just launched, just to experience better that moment. But now we are in the present, and Noble is one of the projects that is mostly showcasing the power of IBC. So, Yelena, feel free to first introduce yourself, and then I will follow up with a question.
Hi, thanks for having me, Yelena here. Yeah, so I guess I can introduce Noble briefly and then talk about kind of what we are building in what I'm calling the second phase of Noble's kind of life cycle, I suppose. And okay, I'll begin. So Noble was built with a very specific kind of purpose in mind. So typically, kind of when you think about app chains, you think about kind of these purpose-built app chains that have one very, very specific kind of use case, or you think of app chains as something more generalized where you can have multiple applications kind of running on one dedicated chain. You can think of Noble for now as the former, right? We have one very, very specific use case, and that is stablecoin issuance within the broader IBC ecosystem, and of course with that comes settlement as well. And so we started off with bringing USDC into the Cosmos ecosystem. I should note that for now, there's actually two kind of prominent stablecoins in the Cosmos ecosystem, one being USDC via Noble and the other one being Tether via Kava. And you can actually see through kind of metrics and just generally looking at the adoption of each stablecoin that USDC via Noble has vastly kind of overtaken Tether, and that's for a few reasons. One, we're very much IBC aligned, and we built USDC on Noble in a way that makes it really straightforward to send your USDC from Noble to Osmosis, to Akash, to DYDX, kind of in this one-click way where you're always preserving kind of the fungibility of the asset. So we have things kind of like routing through Noble to kind of preserve those fungible properties. And of course, we built out the USDC kind of implementation as Cosmos SDK modules. So we didn't decide to kind of use smart contracts or anything like this, because we actually find that this module framework is a lot more beneficial for issuers in terms of things like redemptions and things in terms of putting in certain permissions and checks and things like this. And so overall, because we, of course, built USDC to be super easy to use over IBC, and because we built USDC as a SDK module, among other reasons, we've seen USDC over Noble really take off as kind of the dominant stablecoin within the broader Cosmos ecosystem. One other thing to note is we look at IBC as like one kind of interoperability kind of primitive among many. So another thing that not many, but a few. So one other thing that we kind of made a really important point of is making sure that with Noble's CCTP implementation, so this is Circle's cross-chain transfer protocol, this is Circle's native bridge, with this implementation on Noble, which by the way was the first non-EVM implementation of CCTP, even before Solana, is you can actually directly mint, for example, USDC on Osmosis by burning, let's say, your USDC on Ethereum in this like one-click fashion, right? So I have, USDC on Ethereum. I want to take that to Osmosis in one click. I do that by using CCTP from Ethereum to Noble, and then something called a forwarding module from Noble to Osmosis, which of course includes IBC as sort of the last leg of that journey. So again, making sure that things like that IBC is very flexible and very well kind of connected to things like the CCTP workflow that Noble built out is really important to us. So we're not looking for Noble to be this sort of place where all of the stablecoin liquidity lives, right? We're actually really much looking to be a proliferator of this stablecoin liquidity from Noble to many, many other destinations. And that was always sort of our thesis from the very beginning, and something that we're continuing to kind of work towards. So that's a little bit about Noble and kind of how we're using IBC right now. But of course, there's a lot more that we can dive into. And yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
I had a question. What's the TVL of Tether? Because Noble's at 283 right now.
Yeah, it's a good question. I haven't checked in a little bit, but the last time I did check, the overall TVL was similar. But if you look into the actual kind of address count, kind of volume in terms of like IBC out from Kava, it's very minimal, right? So you can actually think of like the kind of outstanding TVL of Tether to mostly actually be like held by like a few entities.
Yeah. Basically
Yeah.
liquidity that doesn't really move. It's useless.
Yeah, and I mean, again, this is like a metric that we track, right? Like IBC out from Noble. So we always look at like the ratio, right? So what is the IBC in versus the IBC out, right? So IBC in anytime that USDC goes again from anywhere else, in crypto that has native USDC. So it's a long list of chains, and then the IBC out, of course, is what leaves Noble to go to places where it's useful, right? Like Osmosis, UIDX, Kosh, etc. And so that ratio is typically I mean, typically it's 95% of the USDC that actually leaves Noble, maybe not between 90 and 95%. So as you can see, most of the USDC leaves Noble, whereas on Kava, if you kind of look into the metrics, a lot of the tether actually just stays on Kava.
Yeah, I think this is like it goes back to that conversation of TVL isn't a useless metric, but it kind of is. Volume is actually much more evident of like, what actually matters. And the volume on USDC via Noble on in the Cosmos is like 20, 50x higher, if not more than that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I also typically like to look at volume over outstanding TVL myself. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I love how Aaron is bringing some spiciness. And actually, now you can also watch the volume of LBC, not only on Mapozone, but also on DeFi Llama. So that's a very cool metrics that we have now. And I think that, especially now with Osmosis and Noble, we saw some of the use cases that an idea upon IBC can have. And I want to remind that this is really the opportunity now for everyone in the audience to actually bring their idea and participate to the ABC Ideathon. And you have until the 27th October to submit your idea. So be sure to develop your idea because this is really time where you can receive support for becoming a builder and actually bring your idea to life. So I want to go now to Brianna because we are going now to Solana and the Solana world because Solana is actually coming closer and closer to Cosmos and the broader interchain. And I'm curious to know what is currently the interoperability landscape look like in Solana?
Yeah, personally, I would say we have a lot of different apps for the interoperability landscape, but there's still a lot to be explored. We currently have like a few bridges. There's dBridge and AllBridge that are great to look into. Another app to explore for some ideas for the hackathon, I would say, is Picasso. It's an IBC-enabled, like, generalized restaking hub for Solana. So that's like another thing to look into to help get some ideas here. I would say for some work related to GMP, you have like Wormhole, which it essentially enables cross-chain smart contract CPIs to call functions from other on-chain contracts. So that's really helpful of a framework if you're looking into some ideas to have like on-chain actions that are cross-chain between Solana and the Cosmos app chains. And then just to get some ideas on how to build on top of Wormhole, you can look into Wormhole's XApp frameworks. They work a lot with the Solana interop. And overall, I would just say looking at the user experience for some of these bridges and apps and frameworks and just focus on how we can really enhance the interoperability between Solana and the Cosmos app chains because it's still being explored quite a lot at the moment. So, yeah.
Awesome. And there is specifically a track for Solana. So if you love Solana, this is your opportunity to actually bring it even more closer to the IBC world. And it's definitely an exciting times because seeing ecosystem merging in this giant internet of blockchain, it was what was the idea of Cosmos, and that idea now is a reality. Thanks to a lot of contributors, and thanks to today who is in the audience and as a guest because they are building those applications that actually showcase the power of IBC. Now, actually, we are going to dive into the product of each chain, and specifically, I want to ask to Greg how Akash is leveraging IBC today, and what is the supercloud? I know that you recently have been showcasing here the power of the supercloud, but I'm sure even today there is new audience that want to know what is actually the supercloud.
Yeah. So on your first question, how Akash is leveraging IBC, it's primarily for DEX support. I don't, I mean, and also for payments. So DEX support, of course, Akash being uh, being on Osmosis is the prime is probably the biggest volume generators. But we recently started supporting USDC for payments. So the volume is like negligible, but that's one of the connections that we had to IBC. What I like to see is more depends or devents, I suppose, is a new term now, that are that offer various services to complete the cloud. what that means is the term super cloud essentially, like the name suggests, it is a cloud that sits on other clouds, creating the super cluster. The other clouds could be any cloud capable compute, could be a compute sitting in a data center, or it could be a compute sitting in a, you know, a nerdy home with a lot of power and good internet connection. Could be any, you know, cloud capable compute that could join this massive supercluster and offer computational resources to tenants that want to consume them, right? So that's what a supercloud really means. But in technicality, what Akash is, it's a decentralized control plane that decouples the control from the resource. Uh, so by separating the control, you can effectively take away control on any single individual cloud provider um, and give the control back to the user. That's the biggest benefit of using Akash. It makes an application unstoppable. It ensures that the user always has the best possible price because it makes providers compete to provide user the best price, and that usually tends to be the correct market price, right? And it's for the first time ever we have a fully open source cloud that's only possible using decentralization. Without decentralization, you can have open source software, but you cannot have an open source network. And I think that makes the supercloud extremely powerful. And today, the biggest benefit supercloud offers is to workloads that are extremely resource constrained, particularly GPUs, right? So GPUs are the lifeblood for AI, and in particularly the high density GPUs NVIDIA makes, namely H100s and A100s. Those are very hard to come by, and if you do get access to them, they're very expensive and usually require you to make long-term commitments that are not ideal for a startup or a mid-sized company. So where Akash can offer you those resources with significantly more flexible terms, be it on demand compute, meaning you only pay for what you use, versus your typical H100 uh, access would be embodied in a long-term contract, right? So, Nakash, you can get on-demand compute at prices probably one of the lowest prices available, if not the lowest. I mean, right now, H100s are about $1.50, which is compared to Amazon. Last we checked, Amazon charges about $12 per hour. So yes, you can get very high quality AI grade, high density GPUs for significantly lower price what you would otherwise pay Amazon. And it matters, especially in AI, because the it's very expensive to do AI inference or even training or even fine tuning. And so any cost advantage there helps significantly, especially for a cash strapped. That's what a super
Hey,
cloud is. So yeah.
Greg, I had a question. I remember a few months ago, I saw like some competitor drama pop up, and like people were criticizing competitors of like their like fake claims, and they were using different GPUs. Can you touch on like what is the climate or what is the state of these competitors with Akash, and like why are they not able to compete? Why is Akash better, basically? Like how do you guys get these actual products and at these cheaper prices, and why can't they do that?
Well, so Akash, it was the first one and had some success last year, and folks are attracted to the success. And this is crypto, it's a free market, so people can launch. One competitor, I don't want to name names, one company, oh, quote unquote competitor, but one company that launched with the claim that they have 4 times more A100s than Meta. So Meta being Facebook, four
Right. This
times.
was like how many months ago was this? Like 5 months ago when this was out,
Correct.
and people were
Yeah.
like, "What is this crazy claim?" Like if you make a claim like this, you have to at least be realistic, so so it's believable, right? Like the larger you make the claim, the more people are going to dig into it and then just like destroy you.
Of course, I mean, that's what happened. So there are two major claims that this company made. One claim is that they solved distributed machine learning, which is not solved. So distributed machine learning in the sense, so today to train a large cluster, a large LLM, you're required to have co-located high-density GPUs with very low latency between them. So you have really mega data centers. If you look at what Elon Musk is building in Memphis, or he built in Memphis, which has 100,000 H100s in a single location, consuming about 50 megawatt capacity data center. You need really large clusters, right? Like GPT-4 was trained on a 10 megawatt cluster with I think 25,000 H100s, 25, sorry, 100,000 H100s. So you mean why? Because the latency affects training speeds quite a lot. So this company, this relatively unknown company, whose founder happened to be a KOL that was doing, I don't know, crypto in Saudi Arabia or something, and all of a sudden comes here and claims that they've solved distributed training, which brightest minds haven't solved yet, and they have 4 times more GPUs. And the worst part is they got funding, $30 million from one of the top tier VCs too. And obviously, and it's fully closed source, and it's there's no documentation whatsoever, no approach, nothing to prove that. And I had my red flags when I met this founder, and it just tells you, I know we have Solana Foundation on the call. I mean, Anatoly is a good friend of mine, but we have a lot of these like people that actually funded this just categorically false claim. And they got caught, and now they only have 6,000 GPUs. Apparently, we also don't know how true that is because it's fully closed source, and I don't know how you can claim something to be decentralized and closed source. So that's what happened with the competitor. That effectively killed the DeepIn trust, I believe, right? Because again, crypto is very, very fast to gain trust and very fast to lose trust. I think that's sort of like, uh, you know, really slowed down. And I've been talking to a lot of people that this company made promises to in terms of, putting their supply onto this network and earning outsized rewards, which was not true. And a lot of these people that invested got lost. And so there's a whole mess that we need to clean up from decent sector. And that's what happened. Why is Akash better? Why? Well, frankly, we're just open and transparent, right? It's open source. So any claim that Akash makes, can be verifiable on chain. We don't have millions and thousands of GPUs. We have enough GPUs, but we have a lot of utilization for those GPUs, right? And that's what really matters. Um, and most of the GPUs on Akash are high density H100s, unlike 4090s or home computers that are not very usable until we solve that distributed training problem, which, by the way, is being solved on Akash by a company called Moose Research, another company called Prime Intellect, who has published papers on RWix. They're very, very good teams. And it's being solved. In OpenAI, I believe, is working on another model too. So why is Akash better? Well, removing all the other fraudulential claims, Akash generally has a general purpose capability. That means you can run anything you run on Amazon on Akash. So typically when you're training, you need a vector database, you need storage, you need bandwidth, you need IP addresses, ports open, you need the whole orchestration like a traditional cloud that most GPU networks that claim to be GPU only don't really offer those capabilities. So they're not very usable. So that's why Akash is better. There's another competitor who's kind of jumping ranks, um, but they're fully closed source and they're not launched yet. So we really don't know what's happening there. But they claim to have thousands of GPUs in their documentation. So keep an eye out. It's kind of sad that we're in this situation where outside claims with nothing being verifiable. Sorry, so I'm gonna tell. I'm gonna knock the door. Yeah. So yeah, it's outside claims that there's nothing, none of it is verifiable. So my biggest request to people that are building in the space is be transparent, be open. There are other transparent projects now. I mean, in Asana, which is pretty good, which is building on Solana, by the way, very underrated. They don't claim to have all these thousands of GPUs. They do have good amount of GPUs, and they're fully open source, right? So teams like that, I think, need to be promoted versus teams like, I don't want to name these people because last night I had a dinner with one of the investors, and we kind of agreed to not throw shade on the sector because we had rebuild now. But yes, my biggest request will be to build open source. Keep it true. You got to remember why we're here building what we're doing. It's not. There are better ways to make money being closed source. There's no need to do, to claim that you're decentralized and have a token and all that stuff. There's a lot more. I mean, if you really want to build product and make money, you can just be fully closed source, do a SaaS app. And it's much easier to succeed that way. But if you're truly building decentralized systems, ask yourself why you're doing this, right? You're not building a SaaS app because you cannot have a SaaS front end and a decentralized backend. That's going to work. This is just not going to work, right? So, yeah. That's to throw some light on the situation.
Awesome, and I have to say thank you, Aaron, for triggering Greg because he brought one of the most beautiful speech today. Because I truly think that the direction that Akash is showing is aligned with the ethics of the blockchain space, and we are definitely proud also as Interchip Foundation that Akash is building with the stack. So thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts about this. I want to go now to Yelena because what is fascinating about Noble is actually how is presenting its product to the audience. And one of the definitions that I like that you and your team has been using very often is interchain UX. So what Noble means to be interchain UX?
Yeah, I mean, as a lot of people, like both as kind of users of these applications or builders of these app chains, can understand that UX is still a big problem, right? Whether that's me kind of interacting, with various app chains, or whether that's me, I guess, being a builder of one of the main app chains in the space. And so, what Noble is trying to do is pretty simple from a stablecoin perspective, right? You have all of this fragmentation across, many Cosmos chains. We're seeing this even more now in the Ethereum space across L2s, L3s, etc. What Noble always tried to solve for was, how do I make it really easy to go between two distinct app chains in as least friction as possible when it comes to using stablecoins? So I talked a little bit about that with some of the things we did around things like forwarding and IPC routing, and even things like implementing Circle's bridge as the first non-EVM chain to do so. And ultimately, that's what we're looking to do with more stablecoins that we issue, right? So you can have a situation, very soon in the future where I want to go with stablecoin, A to stablecoin B between two distinct chains. Maybe that's DYDX and Osmosis. How do I do that at the perfect price with as least kind of UX friction as possible? And that's something that we're looking to kind of solve for. I think, actually, and obviously we have Aaron here in this space. It's very, very aligned, I would say, to what Polaris is trying to achieve. Obviously, Polaris is more focused as this kind of general purpose kind of DEX, whereas we're very, very much singularly focused on stablecoins. But again, very, very straightforward, right? I want to take my USDC and swap it for, let's say, euros. So I can take that euro and send it to, I don't know, some DeFi application. I want to be able to do that using Noble with, again, the least friction as possible in terms of the UX and also in terms of pricing. So sometimes people have, thought of like Noble as a bridge. We are very much not a bridge because we have our own dedicated app chain to issuing these stable coins and working directly with the issuer. And because, of course, we use existing kind of primitives like IBC, like CCTP. We're also working with the Wormhole team right now on a specific kind of workflow that's to be announced for Noble as well. So yeah, that's kind of the idea, right? Interchain UX. It's like, how do I go from point A to point B with one or two assets or more in as least of a friction, in least friction as possible. Yeah.
I think the next big unlock for USDC in the Cosmos, and also obviously pertaining to Noble, is like all the major centralized exchanges supporting the withdrawals. Now I know we live in a world where like DeFi, decentralization, hardcore, but on ramping is still pretty big, and users still use centralized exchanges. So historically, Cosmos has been in this uphill battle, but not in kind of in an organic fashion. What I mean by this is like basically less funding, more building, less institutional backing, but way more tech. And for example, like IBC, way before its time, still best in class when it comes to bridging technology, but it doesn't get all this crazy funding. Even during the ICO days with Atom, like it was capped. So as the ICF puts out its reports, these numbers would be probably 2-3x higher if Atom didn't cap it. So like the Cosmos never had the craziest funding. So when it comes to something like USDC, it took forever to actually get into the Cosmos natively. We had to bridge it via Axelar and other bridges. Um, but still, the organic growth took place. Same thing with Tether. It was there before it was natively here. But again, eventually it made it over. And I think, by playing catch up, I don't know if that's the right word. I think by taking the organic route to grow these things and getting these things more on merit versus just like paying for them, it kind of shows like the Cosmos is here forever and IBC is also here forever. But again, like I said, like the next unlock for stablecoins in Cosmos is like that major centralized exchange support, and then I think it's just like flourishing even more after that.
So this is actually reminding me of a funny story, especially when Yelena mentioned the euro, because I was having a conversation with Togi, which is also a Noble partner, and they basically were mentioning about bringing institution, but especially connecting with the real world, like bank account. And literally, I said to them, can we expect in the near future that actually IBC bring us directly to our bank account, so that maybe we can give directly from osmosis to the bank account someone from our uncle, etc., etc. And literally the next week, Yelena announced with Noble the Euro wallet and the connection with an IBAN account. So if you want to share a little bit about that and adding additional context, feel free to Yelena.
Yeah, it's a really exciting unlock, and it's early days for, I think, all of the exciting kind of applications that can be built on top of this like very specific workflow for the euro itself. So I guess for those that are not familiar, we announced a few weeks ago that we're working with a project called Minarium to issue the Euro C on Noble. So the Euro C right now is available on Gnosis, Polygon, and Ethereum, I think. And the last I checked, which was a few weeks ago, by volume, so not outstanding amounts, but by transaction volume, it is the most widely adopted Euro stablecoin out there. So it's interesting in terms of transaction volume. It's, I think, gone above 2 billion. In terms of outstanding volume, it's quite low because it's actually being used in the real world by being withdrawn to bank accounts. And so how does that work exactly? So Minarium is they're a very awesome team. They're based in Iceland actually, and they have their own bank. And what they've done through many years of seeking approvals from certain regulators in the European Union, they've created a system where you can actually, after you've onboarded with Minarium, so there's an element of KYCing, which is actually very easy to do, unlike it is with Circle, where KYCing and being able to mint USDC is only reserved for businesses. So retail can onboard with Minarium, they can pass KYC, and they can actually generate an IBAN bank account. So this is the standard for banking accounts in the European Union and actually even beyond. And from that IBAN account, you can actually generate an on-chain wallet address. So in this case, you can generate a Noble address with your IBAN and directly mint the euro on your Noble address. So you can obviously, take that euro on your Noble address, put it into a, self-custodial wallet, use it in various kind of DeFi applications, kind of on-chain applications. And then, of course, if you want to withdraw that for actual kind of, I guess, euro fiat currency, you can do so with your IBAN. And so you can directly withdraw to your IBAN, and now you have that euro currency directly in your bank account. So in this sense, your Noble address, your Noble wallet becomes your bank account, where you can do a whole bunch of things that you wouldn't be able to do if you obviously just had that euro sitting in your IBAN, like in a regular bank in somewhere in Europe, right? So it's very exciting. And in terms of Noble's sort of forward-looking vision and our kind of what I'm calling, the second phase of Noble, it's actually starting to build those applications on top of Noble itself, right? So, you can imagine, a payments application where, again, it's really easy to go between the dollar and the euro. I mean, that's a huge market. There was a stablecoin report put out by Visa a few weeks ago, and they actually kind of showed in terms of currency markets, like in the real world, of course, the dollar is like the most in demand, but the euro and the yen, they're close second and thirds. And although those currencies in the real world are obviously very useful, they're not really represented on chain in a straightforward way, right? Through kind of stable coins, through the stablecoin kind of infrastructure that's being built out. So yeah, Noble's very much at the kind of cutting edge of a lot of these developments, because we kind of work directly with the issuer. We understand, okay, Monerium kind of has this very unique workflow established for their euro stablecoin, the Euro C. Okay, how does Noble actually now develop, applications, and of course, the actual UX for these stablecoins, such that, of course, I can take my euro stablecoin to any, chain, rollup, etc., connected to Noble, but I can actually start using those coins on Noble itself in a very useful way that maybe I haven't been able to find elsewhere, kind of in the crypto ecosystem. The base ecosystem, they're doing a lot of things around this, right? Like really making stable coins useful, right? Things like lending, borrowing, payments, etc. Noble is kind of one of very few handful of protocols that are actually making a huge push towards, again, making these stable coins very useful. So I talked a little bit about the euro stablecoin and how that works on Noble with Monerium, and the fact that you can withdraw it directly to any IBAN account. But forward looking, there's a lot of exciting things that we're doing from an application, from a user facing perspective on Noble itself, in terms of, making these stablecoins just more useful to everyday people.
Awesome, very cool, and thanks for accelerating the future, because we discussed that this could be a scenario in 10 years, so that's actually 1 week, so I would say pretty cool achievement. I want to ask to Aaron, because Yelena just mentioned Polaris. So basically, Osmosis recently announced Polaris, and of course, this is something that is a new vision for Osmosis. So feel free to introduce what does it mean launching Polaris, and what kind of vision it brings.
Yeah, so the name of the game for Polaris is essentially the best UX that you really don't even know you need right now, because you're so used to the shitty UX across the entire DeFi industry. And what I mean by shitty is not that each individual app is shitty, it's that the cohesive experience across all of DeFi is kind of shit, because you're bridging across three different ecosystems. You have to trade 7 different times, and any individual swap that is beyond 2 orders of magnitude like of complexity is just annoying as hell to transact in. So basically, Polaris does this all for you. It abstracts it all away, makes your life better. So we call it the token portal. Basically, it's like this portal that can access any token from any ecosystem, that of your choice. Um, and also make sure that you get the best pricing. And also, this should be, eventually flexible, so that if you want it faster, maybe you pay a little more for it. If you don't care about the speed, then you can get the best pricing for it. And there are different assets. There are same assets, but on different ecosystems. For example, if you want to get something from native Bitcoin network, uh, and this is Bitcoin, of course. Or, what if you're okay with just having your Bitcoin in the Cosmos, or on Solana, or on Avalanche, or Ethereum? Do you care if it's wrapped Bitcoin, or are you okay with a different derivative of it? And all these things are things that you'll be able to choose from as well. So the idea to kind of touch on what the problem was and tying it to like a real world example would be think of like in the credit card world in the US, there's this huge credit card game not gaming, but in this ecosystem of gaming credit cards, where basically you maximize points across different credit cards. So you might have 10 different credit card companies. They offer you different perks. Some of them offer you straight cash back. Some of them offer you lounge benefits. Some of them will offer you airline points, discounts at certain uh venues. And the thing is, like, none of these are interoperable with each other, unless you take one of those super tedious and annoying routes of, like, spreadsheets and going through communities and trading things. It's and then you're like working on super high slippage on points that you may have earned with a certain credit card. But basically there's no way to have all these bundle them into a single app, and then you can use your lounge with a different credit card, maybe because you're trading someone else. So like maybe someone has the Amex card and you want the Centurion Lounge, but you don't have that Amex card, but you have the Capital One Venture X. What you can do is you have this app and you're easily trading access for this Centurion Lounge now. This is more like a real world example of like what players would be doing for you, or even in like a, let's say, like the video gaming world. There are three major consoles, well, four. Let's take a PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, and each of them has different point systems. Like you can have your Xbox points, or on PC you maybe have like Steam points, and you can't really trade these easily. And then going further in hundreds of different video games, on Fortnite you have V Bucks, in Elden Ring you have like souls, in World of Warcraft you have gold. None of these are tradable with each other, but every gamer would love the ability to be able to trade their assets in a video game like World of Warcraft to go buy something in Fortnite or Call of Duty, and vice versa. So basically Polaris connects all these, even though uh all these ecosystems aren't inherently like supporting this. It doesn't matter because it's decentralized. The only difference here is that in the real world a lot of these things are centralized, and they are going to block you no matter what, because they don't want to let go of the grips on their ecosystem. They don't want to let go of that money that they are keeping within their ecosystem. Polaris connects all these, removes those barriers, and ensures that these like walled gardens of ecosystems can just be abstracted away.
So when you made the gamer example, you got my son up to the early access to Polaris, because if no one is aware right now, Polaris is making an early access campaign. So make sure to follow also the Polaris account to stay updated on the latest. And speaking about Polaris, I actually think that Polaris, one of the things that will do is also integrate more Solana in the broader ecosystem. So, Brianna, what is the vision and currently the main mission for Solana? Because our audience is mainly primarily focused on the Interchain and the Cosmos ecosystem. So maybe you can bring a bit of that knowledge of Solana here. And especially, do you have also, as a follow-up question, any recommendation for our idea hackers on the Solana track?
Yeah, definitely. So first, with Solana's mission, Solana, it's a decentralized blockchain, and it's built to enable just scale and user-friendly apps for the world. The infrastructure, it's fundamentally to change the digital world, and the Solana's foundation mission is to help facilitate this. Now, for use cases for the hackathon, I would say when thinking about ideas for this hackathon, you really want to think about what's the main goal of interop in Web3. And in my opinion, it's like creating a really good UX to enable more apps to be built for users. So a few things that I could think of as use cases here would be like a protocol-specific adapter. So smart contracts on Solana that can decode and execute transactions based on the IBC data that comes in. So that would just help further enable interop between the Cosmos app chains and Solana and help kind of from the dev side of things. And then another example would be like you could do cross-chain oracles and cross-chain KYC that would enable like specific real-world assets to exist in cross-chain DeFi platforms. So really just like taking a step back and thinking like, how can we really optimize this for the user and make the UX the best way possible? And you can go back to some of the app examples that I mentioned earlier, like Picasso or dBridge or Allbridge, and look at the current user experience there and see how that interaction really is between Cosmos app chains and Solana, and kind of see what's missing, like from a user perspective, and think about ideas there. And then another like potential idea is working directly with the IBC design. So IBC, it's an open source repo, anyone can make a PR to it. So you could think of the IBC design to enable the adoption of Solana's runtime. So you could develop a module on Solana that can kind of interpret and validate IBC messages. And that would really help just advance more apps to be used like cross-chain in Web3. So yeah, I would say that's kind of a few use cases. And yeah, that's everything.
Oh, that's great, and thank you for sharing these use cases because now ID Hackers knows what they can submit for the Solana track. So if you're excited about Solana, now you have more context on what you can bring as ideas. And remember that this is an idea; you don't have to bring a lot of technicalities. There is the idea builder that in the IBC Ideaton that will allow you to actually compose your idea. So literally, very few technicality to make sure that your idea comes to life. And I want to reiterate, like, you don't need to be sure about your idea. Like, that's the beautiful part of an idea. An idea doesn't mean you don't have to know right now that it's possible. You just need to bring your idea and make sure that you really believe it in it. And please feel free to submit. Now I will go to Yelena because I really want to know, because the discussion showcased really a lot of the capabilities between Noble and IBC. So I really want to know, and if you can share some of the ideas that the idea hackers can submit related to Noble and IBC, and if you have any recommendation.
Sorry, this is for the hackers for the hackathon?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, like we're very interested in real world use cases. I know this has become a little bit of a meme in crypto, and I really don't want kind of the hackers participating in the IBC hackathon to feel kind of disillusioned with the lack of real world applications for blockchains and for cryptocurrencies. So I would really just encourage the hackers to think about the end user and kind of pain points that exist for real people. So, you know, still payments are really hard on chain. There's a really cool app called Payy, yeah, double Y, that I would encourage folks to kind of reach out to look at. It's a mobile first payments application. I think it's built on Polygon. I'm not exactly sure, but it's yeah, mobile first private stablecoin payments application. So things like this, right? Like mobile first payments, I would encourage people to kind of take a look at if you can kind of build something, of course, that uses IBC under the hood, such that I can, you know, easily, let's say, swap my Osmo for, let's say, USDC on some sort of mobile first payments application such that I can, you know, pay for my coffee in like, you know, a few seconds at the coffee shop. I think that would be really cool. You know, things like, yeah, payments I would say is a big one. And really anything that allows me, I guess, as an end user to obviously take a, you know, kind of holistic view over kind of my kind of holdings of various like tokens across various chains, IBC connected chains, and again, use my use some sort of front end or some sort of application to kind of manage those assets. I think is always like still something that's needed. I think wallets can always be improved, right? Like wallet UX can always be improved. Yeah, so things like this, really just like user facing applications, improvements on wallets, payments, yeah, things like this.
Also, I'm really looking forward to see if these ideas arrives and actually will have some solid substance to win some of the prizes. Also, I want to go to Aaron because one of the tracks is chain abstraction. And I have to say, in this ecosystem, there are a lot of projects right now working on chain abstraction. There is the abstract SDK team. There is the Agoric team. There is Xion that also is built with Cosmos SDK. So chain abstraction is definitely a vibe in this ecosystem. But also, Osmosis recently integrated smart accounts. So can you do you definitely have the experience to share some of the context for this track, and if you have any suggestion, if you want to share more about the launch of smart accounts?
Yeah, so first of all, I'd like to, let everyone know I am likely the least technical person on the Osmosis side. But with that said, smart accounts basically brings things like automation, one-click trading, multi-key, multi-device support. If you want your account easily accessible, from like 5 different devices, makes it 10 times easier, which also, of course, makes onboarding easier. And there's the feature to have recovery baked in. That's something you can opt into, so you don't have to do it. We're not nothing like Ledger and that controversy here. And then so like how does this tie in with abstraction? What do we want? So basically, what if you could do everything with smart accounts, but you can tie that into other ecosystems? So I think that would be probably the next big unlock. And obviously, like Polaris does do some of this, but we are one team, so there's a limit to how fast we can build and how much we can build. And I think basically tying anything in with smart accounts, chain abstraction, and Polaris is where the ideas should go right now. Make things easier for trading or onboarding, or even potentially baking in actual like apps. So like, what if you could one click trade straight into some kind of lending protocol or perps from another chain? That I think that would be really cool. And using this all on smart accounts.
Awesome. Let's bring more chain abstraction in the ecosystem. And of course, I'm not joking, like I'm serious. I think this is one of the use cases that is very popular. So if you're excited about chain abstraction, this is the track where you need to go. Now, lastly, I want to go to Greg because Greg, as a founder, experience in bringing a crazy idea to life. Because let me tell you, the super cloud was a crazy idea, but Greg is proving everything wrong. So that everyone is wrong. Sorry. So actually, Greg, can you share to the listeners here today what it means to bring to life an idea that actually needs to be proven, and if you have any suggestion to share today with our audience?
Um, I've been working on Akash and the company behind Akash for about 10 years, right? So I guess I did not realize when I started this journey 10 years ago that it's going to take this long. So I think the best advice is to set the expectations straight. It is a long journey to get to anywhere. I mean, there are cases people have success in the first year, second year. I think most of them don't. So I guess prepare yourself to make the commitment. Um, if not, it's probably not worth pursuing down the line if you're going for a moonshot, right? Like, well, rebuilding the cloud, that's a moonshot. Putting satellites in space, that's a moonshot. There are lots of moonshot problems that we can still work on. Um, but just be prepared for the commitment that you're willing to make. Or, you know, there are other ideas that I guess just doing something because you want to do something is generally doesn't result in a good outcome. And the worst part is when you do something just because you have to do something and you get some basic validation, and that validation turns out to be turns out to reinforce your biases on the validity of an idea. That's the worst case scenario, right? Um, so the what I like is in scenarios like that is just be a hacker and be as pragmatic as possible. Um, Instead of trying to build products that are, you know, that you believe is going to get large, just have a smaller sort of like goal and just go towards a goal with full speed. So ideas that I worked on with that mode always worked out great. Ideas that are moonshots uh, requires commitment, and without which there's no success. That's the only advice I would give.
I would say this is great for ending today's space because this really shows that ideas are very powerful, but you really need to put some commitment to bring it to life. So really, don't be lazy because now there is a concrete opportunity for everyone in the space to go clicking now on the IBC account on my side and start to discover this opportunity because you can win 5 prizes. So you really need to be on that 5 ideas and you will receive support to bringing this idea to life. So please feel free to do it. And I want to thanks again all the guests today because I think this was a super valuable space and you are really contributing not only with the project to this ecosystem, but also with your thoughts and your ideas as well.
Thank you so much. This was fun.